So it is time for the first PL Express, and PL Express every single week now will live right here. We're coming out to you on this ESPN FC live show. Make sure to join us 3 times a week on YouTube, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Friday at this time from 12 Eastern. We'll be bringing you all the biggest talking points, but every single Tuesday, this is where PL Express is going to live now. My name's Kay Murray, joined again for another season and delighted to be so by Janusz Michallik. And we're going to get straight into some of the big topics that we saw from the Premier League this weekend. The first of which, Pep Guardiola and Erling Haaland, and that little moment at halftime, Janusz, that we've been talking about, where Pep came racing onto the field because even though Haaland had just scored 2 goals, Pep had seen something he didn't like. What did you make of it?
I love it. At first, you kind of look at it as a former player, says, yeah, maybe just doing this for cameras, right? But we've seen him do it all the time. And the reason I have zero problems with that is because, look, Kay, you've asked me this. I'm sure every television station has been talking about it, right? I mean, the topic in terms of can Manchester City win the title again was always asked, right? And one of the first answers is, well, how do you keep this team motivated? Well, this was one of the examples from Pep Guardiola, because he's got to convince these players that they have got more to give, that they have to be hungry. How to keep them hungry? How to keep them engaged after you win a treble? You win just about every trophy now since he's been there, and a lot of the same players are there. So I think that's part of the reason. The very first game. Yes, you're Erling Haaland. You scored 1 million goals, but I think you can score 2 million goals. I'll give you an answer later how many he's going to score. But it seems silly. But when I try to think of it as a player, right? At first, I was probably have a smirk, and I think that's what we saw from Erling Haaland. It's like, what do you want from me? I mean, what do I? but there's always that detail, and it stops you there, because as a player, sometimes I think you're coming off at halftime saying, "Oh, I did my job. I scored a couple. I'm good." And here you have your manager saying, well, you could have had a hat trick. You should have had a hat trick. Maybe you could have had 4, or maybe somebody else could have had another goal if your movement was this way, that way, or whatever Pep was telling him. So I get that. I respect that. I've said it before, and I'll continue to say, as many, that he's the best manager in the world because of that. He doesn't leave anything to chance, and he continues to challenge his players in every which way. And by the way, he's going to have to do that. He's lost 2 incredible players in Gundogan and Riyad Mahrez, who I think they may even miss more than Gundogan, as crazy as it sounds. And now we found out that Kevin De Bruyne may be out for 2, 3, 4 months. So this is going to be Pep at his best again. He's going to find ways to motivate others, to make certain players play in crazy positions that in this moment we can't think of, but it's going to happen.
You just mentioned Kevin De Bruyne, so let me pick up with that one, because Guardiola has confirmed that he will be out for a few months. Obviously, as you said, the reports were saying 3 to 4 months with a hamstring injury. How big a miss is he going to be?
Well, unbelievable. But, again, this is going to be Pep. So he's going to find a way. And guess what? Kevin De Bruyne probably is going to be nice and fresh and ready for the business end of the season, when it all matters. We know that Manchester City often starts slow. They didn't this time, but obviously after 4, 5, or 6 games, who knows how long it's going to take to kind of integrate the new team, if you will, in there. And De Bruyne is going to be back. I mean, he's going to be a big miss, but you know what? Here's the challenge. And that challenge existed, by the way, always before the injury to De Bruyne. Phil Foden. Hey, Pep, you tell me that's the best player you ever coached, most talented player you ever coached, right? You had Leo Messi. I want to see it. I think he's getting better, but I don't think we've seen the Phil Foden that we all want to see. That's going to be another great opportunity for him to get better. Julian Alvarez, although not the same position, but we see him playing below Erling Haaland. He's going to have to be a player that's going to have to pitch in. And as I said, who knows who's going to be the next player? By the way, there were rumors of Paquetá coming in even before the injury. Now I'm pretty sure that they're going to do absolutely everything to get Paquetá or player like it, and the problem solved.
All right. Before we move on from Man City, then, higher or lower than 36 goals this season for Erling Haaland?
Yes, like Rob, I was going to give it lower. I was thinking differently, but I mean, Kevin De Bruyne kind of almost exclusively looks for him, doesn't he? So he's not going to be there. He's had some injuries and it was out of form last year, and that didn't prevent Erling Haaland from scoring goals. Slightly lower, which is still going to be unbelievable. So I'm going to go for 32. How's that?
Oh, I thought you might say 35 to get really close and get yourself away with it. 32.
No,
All right.
how many do you think he's going to score? Because you are much closer than I was last year. You said 40, I think, so that's pretty
Well,
close.
yeah, let me not ruin that then, and let me say that he'll better it. If Pep said he's fitter than last season, I'll give it 37. All right.
Good on you.
We got our first look at Arsenal, and obviously they've changed, they've reinforced in the summer. They are looking to go again and be title challengers this year. What did you make of what you saw from them? We got goals from Nketiah and Bukayo Saka in the 2-1 win over Nottingham Forest. After the game, Arteta said, we need to be more ruthless. And obviously that's because it was a bit of a nervy finish for them.
Yes, I mean, for the first game, I think, I didn't have too many worries about Arsenal, but I was interested to see how that development takes place, right? Because the expectations are much higher now. I think they overachieved, as we've mentioned last season. They were very close in terms of winning the ultimate prize. And so what's the next step? How do you get this team better? And I think for the most part, we saw it. Obviously, Yuri Timber, that's a bad injury, because now all of a sudden you have to change. I don't want to say everything, but you had a plan and you had a player that's played great in the preseason, and even in that game, he was very good. Now you have to change that around a little bit. But I saw a team that once again is going to be close to Manchester City. I mean, they're going to be the ones kind of pushing for that. Bukayo Saka, what can you say about him? And and Gabi Martinelli, I'm telling you. And it's funny that Mikel Arteta talked so glowingly about him, because I thought he was very good. See, here's how I feel about Gabi Martinelli. There's so much coming from him. I mean, he's got a ceiling, to me, like anybody in the world. He really does. When I watch him, for me, he's even more talented than Bukayo Saka. I think Saka maybe just. I think Martinelli sometimes trying to do a little bit too much, and he needs to find that fine line between just knowing when the moment is and being what Arteta wants, right? But boy, oh boy, what a player he is. In terms of talent and potential, this is the player that's still ready to explode. There's another player in the Premier League, we'll get to him a little bit later. For me, obviously, I don't know how everybody else.
Teasing what's coming up.
Bukayo Saka, that kind of goal, continuing what he did last year. Martinelli, again, absolutely outstanding. That first goal, I think he gets a little bit lucky. I don't know if he means to actually pass that ball to Nketiah, but it doesn't really matter, because the move itself, we all knew what he wanted to do, to squeeze in between the two defenders. So look, Declan Rice is doing exactly what I think he would. People will say he costs a lot of money. It doesn't really matter. He's the right man at the right team for the right job, and he's going to continue to do that consistently as well. So look, I wasn't disappointed with Arsenal. Should they have won by more? Absolutely. But it's the first game of the season. I think we should prefix almost everything we say today about every game.
But so far, so good, keeping up with Manchester City after one game. They've also, just before we do move on from Arsenal, David Raya has joined on loan from Brentford. Is this going to be issues with Ramsdale for the number one spot here?
Well, I think if you're Ramsdale, it might be an issue. I mean, I think Raya is brought in to be a number one. I really do. It's an uncomfortable position, because I don't know what Arteta's thinking. When you bring a goalkeeper like that, and the reason Raya and Ramsdale playing with their feet, right? Raya is better at it. I'm not saying the leaps and bounds. He's better, but you know how Arsenal and Mikel Arteta want to play. I mean, just like Pep, just like Ten Hag is trying with Onana, he understands that the lines has to be higher, and he also understands that you have to have a goalkeeper that's not afraid to come out and is extremely comfortable with their feet. So the issue here is that Ramsdale has to play himself out. The question is going to be, when he makes the first first or second mistake, is that going to be automatic? That's going to be our answer, right? Because if he's good, normally when your goalkeeper makes a mistake and you truly believe and trust that goalkeeper, you let him play out of that. And we will see what happens when there's a howler that really costs Arsenal, what the reaction from Mikel Arteta is going to be. Not just in the first game, the first 2 games.
All right. Let's get to that Chelsea-Liverpool game then. Hanging over that game, and obviously we know the way it's turned out now, was everything to do with Moises Caicedo. Which team needed him more? We've talked about that earlier in this style show. But what are your concerns with what you've seen so far with both of these teams after this one game?
Well, Chelsea, I mean, what a massive surprise, right? I mean, I don't even know how to go about it because, look, I mean, there's so many new players coming in. First of all, Pochettino was the right move. I think we all felt that way, right? So that's good. But, with Todd Bowley, when this all started, the transfer window in general, because he started early, at first, I thought he was crazy, and he didn't know what he was doing. After that, I thought he was a bit of a, maniac, and I'm like, I'm convinced that he's crazy in terms of what he's trying to do. And now I think he's a genius. And I'm the one that has zero idea what this game is all about and what he's trying to do. Because, that first game, okay, it's the first game. But, I mean, that looked a proper team. I mean, how many changes have they made in the last few months? I mean, it's crazy. There's so many players that there right now that I don't know if Pochettino knows their first name. So what I saw was incredible. Moises Caicedo is going to add to that. If Lavia comes in, by the way, right? I mean, that's going to be incredible because we all felt that Enzo Fernandez is absolutely outstanding. We also knew that Enzo Fernandez needs to have freedom to play and not to be central. We've seen that at Benfica. For Argentina, as he came in, he sort of ended up playing that holding role, even though it wasn't great. But, when you have McAllister on one side and you have Rodrigo de Paul on the other side, it really doesn't matter who plays where. I mean, they were that good. And there's a reason other than just Leo Messi why they won the World Cup, because that midfield was just impossible. One of the best performances I've seen since I've been alive. So that was incredible. So look, I mean, Todd Bowley and Chelsea first of all, very positive start to finish with Chelsea. Todd Bowley and Chelsea are making, Roman Abramovich look like a small merchant. The only difference is that has to be said is that until they win something, Roman Abramovich somewhere out there is going to be smiling because, they've obviously won a ton. In terms of Liverpool, it's hard. It's hard in a way because look, the first 30 minutes were incredible. I mean, and there's a lot of ifs, but if that go from Mo Salah goes in, done and dusted, 3 or 4-0, we may be here talking about what the problems with Chelsea are. I truly believe. I know that Chelsea scored a goal as well, but you know how that goes. First goes in, it doesn't necessarily mean that the other ones would go because I think it's just different psychology of the game. And, millimeters, everything. I was tempted to put it on Twitter in the first 20, 25 minutes. Are these two teams in the same league? Thank God I didn't do it because in the second half, we saw differently and Chelsea were so impressive. And I think with Liverpool, we saw that they just, the Caicedo, the Lavia, an extra couple players are needed because you know what? I mean, they started well. Szoboszlai is going to be incredible. If you watch between the lines what he was doing, there's going to be no issues. And McAllister obviously knows the league, already showing how good he is. That first ball for the first goal, I think he was the one playing the initial ball from the midfield was Alistair McAllister for you right there. But they do need help. They need numbers. They need quality, and they'll be happier of the two leaving Stamford Bridge with a point.
So just to go back to Chelsea, how badly do they need a striker?
I'd like to see it, but Nicholas Jackson, I mean, showed how good he really is. I mean, for a young player who just got there, involved in just about everything. Let's give him a little bit of time. Christopher Nkunku has shown in preseason an unfortunate injury, but he's already been scoring goals for Chelsea. So I'm going to wait and see because I liked what I saw from Jackson. I like what I've seen from Nkunku. I like what I've seen from everybody else, all these young and new players so far. Day one, game one, But I'm not calling for a number 9 just yet, as we all did last season.
Good stuff. Yeah, I was wondering if Poch was like, please, 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 never, ever let me have a chairman like Daniel Levy again. And so he was given the exact opposite in Todd Bowley. He's got to be enjoying life right now. You mentioned Szoboszlai. Let's talk about the best new transfer performance this weekend that we've just seen. Surely it has to be Sandro Tonali, who they're nicknaming Toonali.
It is. And I've said it, I don't want to out myself as a quiet Milan supporter. Everybody cried a little in Milan, right? Because they certainly Milan didn't want to lose Sandro Tonali. I'm not absolutely convinced that Sandro Tonali wanted to leave. In fact, I think he would have probably wanted to be still in Milan. But what a difference he's made! Incredible. Not just goal, contributed as well. Such an intelligent player. Of course, when you come out of Serie A. I hate to use that as a cliche, but I think tactics is the least of your problem. Maybe transition from Italian football to any football is difficult because over the years, and you know that very well, Kay, right? Italian players feel well in Serie A. They understand it, and then when they leave, it's not automatic. But with him, it's been incredible. So look, it's not just Sandro Tonali, but together with Guimaraes, of course, and Joelinton with that steal in that midfield, I think Newcastle fans would feel that there was always something extra needed in that midfield. That Guimaraes himself is great, but what if he's not playing? What if he's not having a good game? Now you have a player that plays box to box, intelligent, can score. Obviously his vision is tremendous. And then, in front, I don't know. Do you want to talk about Newcastle United? Because that's the talking point, really. I'm kind of segueing.
Listen, not yet. A few more 5-1 wins, and we'll definitely make them a priority.
You're on the show, not me.
Okay. Well, great to be back with you, Janusz, and great to have you all with us. With everything that we've seen, we've got a little segment called Sum It Up there. Is there any last point you'd like to make on anything you've seen across the match day that we didn't already, Janusz?
You promise we're getting to Newcastle? Because if not...
Not today. We can wait for that one. Let's make it all about Tonali this time.
Well, no, Newcastle in general, I want to talk about them because, look, it wasn't a 5-1 game. I think we can agree to that. Aston Villa, 2-1 for the longest time. It was a bit of a game. It was a game, proper game for me, both ways. But Alexander Isak, when I raved about, or Isaac, I think, I have to make sure. I think it's Isaac. I'm so used to saying Isak, but anyway. He showed me how good. Last season we saw glimpses. There was an injury, obviously a new team, but my goodness, he's going to be some player. It looks to me like he's been a little bit more physical right now, assured of himself, play through the middle more so than last season. We all know he can play off the left as well, or even right if need be. But that's what I saw. Newcastle continuing under Eddie Howe. That progress, and Isak, watch out. That may be a story in terms of somebody pushing Erling Haaland if he's going to be pushed anyway. But I think we're going to see a lot more goals from him.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.